let's move on to game 2. So this opponent, I'm guessing that he's between 18 and 21, but I don't know where. He's somewhere late teens, early 20s. He was rated 1660 before the tournament. Or no, 1660 was his live rating. Yes, 1660 was his live rating. And then his published rating was a little lower, maybe like 1614, somewhere 16 to 1620. I can't remember. I was white this time. I played d4 as always. And we went into a King's Indian sort of mainline thing for a while. So I was pretty happy because I know all this stuff. And then he played knight c6, which I have seen players play knight c6 early, but usually they do it after castling. And in that case, I think it's considered bad because they really should play e5 first. Then when they play knight c6 and I kick them, they have the e7 square. So when he played... dang it. Man, spoiler alert. Went all the way to the end. When he played knight c6, you know, I sort of stopped to think, like, you know, is this a mistake here also, or is this just something he knows and it's actually okay somehow? But, you know, my calculation was I'll attack his knight, which I did. He'll go here, and I'll double his pawns. What's wrong with that? And also, in addition to doubling his pawns, I've pretty much ensured that this bishop is not going to be super active, you know. So it seemed like a good idea to me, so I did it. The computer likes it, but the computer always likes white and King's Indian, so, you know, who knows. Now, I talked to him after the game, and I asked him about knight c6. I said, you know, I think you played it earlier than I'm used to. Is that just like a line that you know? And he said yes, that was his prep, and that he's looked at it and he thinks that the doubled pawns aren't so bad for black. And I said, you know, at the time it was played, I thought it was wrong, but then later in the game, I thought it made sense. So I sort of agreed with him that this is like okay for black to do this. And I'll explain why later. Imquander, you think it looks silly? I mean, it's certainly unorthodox, but I'll explain in a few moves why I thought it sort of made sense. But I mean, maybe I'm sure I could have played more accurately, but yeah, this was what he wanted to do, so he was happy. Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the typical King's Indian plan, I guess, you know, is white plays on the queen side, black plays on the king side. That's basically what happened in this game, although black didn't really ever get the king side play going that well. So I just continued development, basically proceeded with theoretical moves, except for we had this sort of couple moves that were inserted that are sort of odd. He played h6, which I also told him after the game I thought that was really slow. Yeah, maybe that's it, Ducky. So I like h6 less than knight c6. But you know, I don't see the point of h6. I don't know why he played it. He may have told me, but I don't remember. So I played bishop e3. He castled, and now I, you know, took advantage of h6 by playing queen d2, which has tempo, which it normally doesn't. And that's why I told him I thought it wasn't so good, was that I got to play this with tempo. He played king h7, defending. And I castled. So the computer's pretty happy with white so far. He thought for a long time here. He probably thought for like 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah, I mean, I sort of agree. It sort of ties in with my thoughts about the knight c6 thing, which I'll explain soon. So he went for sort of a typical idea, like, I play knight e8 in the King's Indian when I'm black, because you want to play f5 and start pushing on the queenside pawns. Are we not talking about the mouse slip on the Feingold stream? No, we can talk about that. That was pretty funny. It's funny because Ben still won. If Ben hadn't won, then it would have been more embarrassing, but... Yeah, so if you weren't watching Ben's stream Saturday night, I was a featured guest, and Ben was playing blindfold with me inputting the moves. 3-minute chess. So 3-minute blindfolds where, you know, there's a delay between him saying the move and me entering it and the opponent moving and me saying it out loud. 3 minutes, not a lot of time. So I don't even understand how this happened. But it was the opponent's move, and I'm using Ben's mouse, and I'm just holding the mouse like this, like how I normally hold a mouse. And somehow, by just resting my finger on the mouse, I managed to click. And in doing so, I made a pre-move. And like, I made the pre-move, I realized that I had accidentally made a pre-move, and I tried to cancel it, but the guy moved like instantly. So the guy like took a pawn, and I made a pre-move that didn't recapture and made no sense and gave away another pawn. And of course Ben's blindfolded, so now I have to explain to Ben, like, here's what happens, like, the position you wanted is not, it's not what is on the board, like, here's where we are now. But that didn't really rattle him, which is, I mean, impressive. But if playing blindfold isn't impressive enough, he can cope with, you know, some idiot playing the wrong move. And he still won that game. He won every game that he played blindfold, even with me, you know, messing everything up. So anyway, back to this game. What did I do here? I sort of knew that a very typical idea for white is to play c5 and just to start attacking. I guess this is a good time to sort of talk about why I thought this knight c6 thing was okay. So if we go back, let's just go all the way back to knight c6. So the normal way to play would be castles, bishop e2, e5, castles, knight c6, here, here. Okay, I mean, I don't think this is normal, but we'll go with it anyway. Just because it makes it look sort of similar to the game. So probably knight g4 is right, but we'll go here to make it look like the game. Okay, so now, this is very similar to the game, right? So now if I play c5, I'm hitting it a pawn. Like, I'm already sort of introducing some tension on the queen side. You know, there's sort of a hook here. In the game, if we fast forward to wherever this happened, I just spoiled my move. Now if I play c5, there's no tension. I mean, I'm cramping him, I'm moving my pawns up the board, I'm gaining space, but I'm not necessarily causing tension. Furthermore, the plan for black is to play f5, g5, g4, you know, just shove all these pawns up the board, and it sort of helps have another pawn in the vicinity, I thought. So I didn't think it was so bad, but then again, maybe there's another way white could have played to where black can't take advantage of or salvage this, let's say. And along the same lines, the h6, queen d2, king h7 thing sort of fits too, because black wants to move this pawn. Black wants to move the king to the h file often to get the rook to the g file. So, you know, it sort of is cohesive, even if it's strange, but I mean, the computer still really likes white. I mean, I don't know what these units are, but yeah, +2, you know. But that's always the case in the King's Indian, so that doesn't necessarily mean much. I don't remember specifically why I rejected c5. I think I had some vague notions that maybe it's too soon and I don't want to overextend, but it's a very typical plan. But for some reason, I decided to move my rook. Oh, I remember why. I thought that a good plan for black would be to play e6. And if he plays e6, I thought maybe it's not so nice to take and him trade queens and my bishop come back. So I played rook d1. The idea being that if he ever makes one of these breaks, I can just take. And I'm already getting my rook on this open line. So I'm sort of like making these moves a little less palatable because I'm going to control the d file when it opens up. But I don't know, I think probably c5's better. After c5, e6, black isn't really threatening to take. Is he not? So if I just do something else, let's say I play rook fd1 here. Takes. Isn't this sort of like okay? Because this bishop opens up. If I take with the pawn, which looks the most natural, then this bishop can open up. Do you still really like white? You want to take with the queen? I mean, yeah, if the queens come off, I think I agree. Because I'm not really scared of black's, you know, attack, so... Yeah, and black's got no development, that's true. Okay, so... I think one of the big things I was worried about was... I want this pawn to be here. I don't want to have to ever retake with this pawn. You know, but, you know, you're probably right. I think the computer agrees with you, so... Okay, so this is not what happened. I played rook fd1, which I'm sure is fine too, because, you know, looks good. Also, now my bishop can come defend this, which I thought was kind of nice. And I know it's very typical when they play f5 to play f3, which is what happened. And then when my bishop drops back, my queen is defending this. So there's a lot of defense. And I'm expecting, you know, a tidal wave of pawns at some point. So I sort of knew I'm gonna need to have some defense of the king. Okay, so I think did he play e6 here, or did he play f5? Let's see. b6. Wow. Yeah, I also thought b6 was weird. But he said after the game, he told me why he played b6, but I can't remember. I think he was just worried about c5. But I mean, b6, I can still play c5. But I guess it's less palatable. Yeah, I mean, he's behind... I mean, that's the thing about the knight c6 and h6, is he is sort of behind tempo. And that's how this middle game played out, is I got some queenside initiative, and his kingside attack just wasn't quick enough. It was a little bit slower. And b6 is sort of in the same vein, like... He probably should be playing on the king side. Okay, so I still wanted to, you know, be able to threaten c5, so b4. And I know that's pretty typical also. I mean, that's the bayonet attack. So I just want to march all my queenside pawns. He did play e6. All right, I'm trying to remember what I did here. I know I didn't take it. Oh, I think I played c5. Yeah. Because again, I want to push all my pawns. And he played f5 here. And I played f3. And I mean, I have to play f3 because this is going to trap my bishop. I mean, I don't have to play f3, but I have to save my bishop somehow. I think f3 is right. Very typical. And now he decided to take. And after the game, he pointed out something to me, which I had not noticed. Basically, I spent a lot of time here thinking, okay, how am I going to recapture this pawn? Am I going to take with a pawn? Am I going to take with a knight? Am I going to take with a queen? I thought taking with the pawn, you know, my queenside majority looks very serious. I have a 4-3 majority. His pawns are way back here. I've got a lot of space. I'm very quick to break through and create a passer and, you know, cause some real havoc. Whereas, you know, he'll have a 4-3 over here, but it's a little further back. It's a little harder for him to make progress because my queen and bishop are sort of controlling this a bit. So I just thought that looks, pawn structure-wise, that looks good. However, if I just take here, I thought it would be even better if we got to an endgame and I had that kind of pawn structure. So I took with the queen, because I want to trade queens, and this basically forces it. because the rook is hit and the queen is hanging, so he has to save both. Was e takes f a possibility? That's what he pointed out to me after the game. I never thought about e takes f for 1 second. So he said to me, I think you should have taken on f5, and he said, but you were probably worried about d4 because it looks like your pieces are getting forked. And I said, I never thought about e takes f5. So I wasn't worried about this. I didn't see that this line was legal. But his point was that my pieces aren't threatened because his queen's still hanging. So I never thought about any of this. So he suggested in this position, white should play check. Yeah, I don't know, king takes looks a little suicidal. But I guess if you go back, then h6 is hanging. So I don't know. You're still worried about d4? Man, you are? He suggested, I don't remember if he suggested a specific move here. I think he just said you just, like, save one of your pieces. Bishop d... That may have been what he suggested. Bishop d3 check. Bishop f5 blocking. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really want to develop his bishop for him, right? Yeah, I mean, I think that's a valid point. I mean, to me, this looks like a nice square, right? Isn't this just a pretty good knight? Looks unclear. Yeah. So what I countered to him with was, you know, aren't I, like, developing your bishop? And he was like, yeah, but you can just win a pawn. No, he's right. Wait, maybe he's not right. It's 6 pawns to 6 pawns? Or I can't count? How did we end up similar pawns? Oh yeah, because he took here to start with. So I guess he miscounted the pawns. He didn't like this. He thought this was good for white. Oh yeah, he won the post for sure. So I don't know. I think I still kind of stand by what I did. But these are some interesting possibilities. But yeah, I took this, and yeah, queen takes queen is completely forced. So that's what he did. And now I take with the pawn. And now this just looks like an endgame where white has to be much better. Because, again, this pawn majority is better than this pawn majority. My pieces are better than his. This rook is ridiculous. This knight, everything's ridiculous. None of his pieces are any good. So, okay, so I felt very good at this point. I mean, I know it's not in the bag, but this is just clearly an advantageous endgame. I think he played f4 here, which I thought was bad. Yeah, he played f4, which I thought... I don't like f4, because now it seems like the pawn majority is even worse, because it's hard to, like, do this. But I did realize there were some problems, because if I just make a random move, like, this looks... Like, this is what I would like to do, absent any tactics. But unfortunately, this is a tactic. Oh, so in Quandary, you're suggesting that after this, I can just take this, and who cares? I'm sure you're right. I mean, the computer says you're right. I don't think I really took this... I didn't want to do this. I don't know if I actually stopped to think, like, is this an okay position? But yeah, I mean, black's pieces are preposterous. What's happening? And this king is kind of weak now, and this pawn's good. So, I agree. It's easy to agree when the computer confirms it, but that was what I was worried about. So I played probably a worse move, I guess. I defended my knight, but that blocks the rook, so it's a bit of a bummer. But I thought I'll put my knight here, and all my pieces will eventually be great. He played bishop f5, which I guess was designed to deter that. Wait, now what happened here? Did I play knight e4 anyway? I didn't. What was I worried about here? I think what I was worried about is here, and eventually he's gonna get this move in. Or he's gonna win a pawn. So like, takes. Now this move's not easy to stop. Also, my rook's, you know, still here. Yeah, I mean, I think I was looking at this kind of line and trying to figure out if that's okay. Yeah, that's what happened. I was looking at that. It's possible I looked at other things, but I don't remember. And then I sort of realized in a lot of lines, e4 is a problem. So I was like, let's just solve it. Now e4 is not a problem. Yeah. And I mean, you know, that's a pretty weak pawn. This file could open up. So, I don't know, seems like a good move. I think he played knight f6 anyway. Nope, I'm wrong. Okay, he went there. Which, okay, that's a good move. I maneuvered my bishop so that the rook is open and defending again. He played rook f7. Yeah, I kept thinking, like, he needs to play this or else I'm gonna get this, and that's just gonna be good for me. But then, like, every time he didn't play it, I kept looking at it and I never liked it. So, I can't remember why. I think I still thought that this was just, like, kind of fine. Or maybe not fine, but... You know, I want to stop this forever and it's hard to do. I was looking at stuff like this, and what did I not like? Well, that's a bad move, so... Oh, well, it hangs the pawn. Duh. So, I played a4 here, I think. No, I didn't. I played a4 eventually, don't worry. Okay, I played bishop f2, apparently. Basically, my idea is I want to chip away at this and create a passed pawn. So I was thinking like a4, a5, or, you know, maybe I take or something. I don't remember the specific lines. But obviously the bishop's better here than it was on e1. Maybe this move's a little slow. Maybe I should just do this and get the pawns really going. Because, I mean, in a lot of moments, like, maybe I could have played d6, but I was always afraid to, because I've had so many instances in the past where I push a pawn too soon, and then the guy attacks it with all of his pieces and takes it. So I wasn't sure if I could actually... I mean, I don't think it works here because he's got it too defended, but, you know. In general, pawn moves are so slow. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I just sort of thought, like, if I push the a pawn, and then I start breaking through, even if he wins this pawn, maybe I'm quick enough to create another passed pawn over here somehow. And I guess that's why I wanted to play bishop f2, so that somehow I can win a pawn or sack a pawn, and, you know. I think basically the idea was I want to play a4, a5, and if he takes, then I'll try to, like, attack this pawn somehow. I don't know, that probably doesn't work, but... I sort of don't like bishop f2 because in, like, a couple moves I played bishop e1. I don't really remember how that comes to pass, but that's what happened. So, okay, he finally brought the knight in. He's gonna get this break. I can't really stop him from getting that break. I don't think I can. Yeah, so here I played a4, which doesn't like. And he did break. But I kind of thought it wasn't even that big of a deal, because I take... He took with the bishop, and I actually had a long think about... Should I trade these pieces? Because... I mean, you know, doesn't it seem like taking with the knight's more natural? You don't want to give away your bishop pair. But... and also, I mean, this pawn's attacked. So I felt like I had to take it, and I did take it, and it says that's a blunder, and it says his move's a mistake. So let's figure out why. Another thing I noticed at some point was that knight b5 could be annoying. But I don't know. I mean, this pawn's hanging, so what am I supposed to do? I mean, I guess I could maybe play d6 now, but again, I'm just not very confident. Anything with, like, this? I looked at that, but I was like, he can just play g5. If taking is good, you don't need yet to take it. Yeah, because I guess if he ever does take this, maybe I just start exploiting this pin. Push the D pawn. Yeah, I'm just scared to push the D pawn. Bishop c4 adds another defender. I think I looked at bishop c4. I looked at bishop c4 at some point. Actually, I think that's probably a pretty good move. Because then d6 is coming with a pretty big tempo. Bishop d3. I don't know. What does the computer want to do? Bishop c4. Very nice. Yeah, I mean, I like bishop c4. And it says he needs to move the rook. Also, there could be some idea to go bishop here and try to remove the defender. That looks interesting, too. Okay. Back to real life. I played here. He took back, of course. Yeah, this is where I played bishop e1, because my bishop's hanging, and I have the bishop pair, so I gotta keep the bishop pair. I think I did look at things like take... Oh, there was some crazy line I looked at. Was it here, or was it some other point? I think I looked at this line. Takes, takes, takes. And I was like, that's really good for white. And I'm pretty sure I'm right, that that's just really good for white. But I figured he'll just, like, take back somehow. I guess this way. And now this pawn's isolated and a little weak. It is passed, but... So I saved my bishop. The computer doesn't like it. What does it want to do? Bishop f3. I looked at that too, I assume. I mean, that was kind of always the square I wanted to be on. I guess I'm just such a sucker for the bishop pair. And another thing... Okay, see, now it's agreeing with me after thinking for a little while. Another thing I was worried about was that maybe one day black gets this move in, and then here, and then he starts attacking all my pawns. So I was like, you know, I might want to have a bishop around to defend that stuff. What did he do here? Oh, I know what he did. He thought he spotted a tactic here. This is the funniest part of the game, and I haven't told you guys that this happened. So you'll like this part of the game. He thought he saw a tactic. And he played the tactic that he thought he saw. He played b takes c5. I thought he did, yeah. Which I thought was really weird. Because now these pawns are isolated. You know, you're kind of making it easier for me to get a pass pawn. So I was like, okay, let's take back. And then he played knight takes c5 exclam. And I know that I made some facial expressions like, what? Like, what is that move? And I think that he thought my incredulity was that I realized that he had a tactic and that I had made a mistake and I was upset. But that's not what my facial expressions were about. I tried to give him credit. Like, I thought it was a blunder. I thought he just hung a piece. But it's a long game. I've got probably at least 30 minutes on my clock at this point. I should sit and, like, really think about what is his point here. And I thought that he thought that if I play rook takes, that he'll fork my rook and king. But I have a rook here. And I looked, and I couldn't find any other possible reason for knight takes c5. So I played rook takes. And I think at that point he realized... And I asked him after the game, I was like, did you just miss that my rook was defending the fork? And he was like, yeah. So he just missed it. Which is kind of crazy, because, I mean, I think the game was pretty reasonable to this point. Nobody's made any, like, huge tactical blunders. But, I mean, he just hung a piece here for nothing. Now, here's the really funny part of the game. Yeah, so bouncing remembers that this game actually ends in a draw. So you're probably asking yourself, why did you draw this game? You're up a piece. Ah, you've already seen this game. So he played some kind of rook to the e file, rook e7, and I was like, he attacked my bishop, I'll move it. And now the game's a draw, because I'm an idiot. So who sees the tactic that draws for black? It's pretty easy, especially since I already showed it. Yeah, I just like didn't even think about this. So he played rook takes e1, and I was just like really pissed. So it was one of those where like I touched my bishop and I moved it, and sometime in between me touching the piece and me writing down the move, I realized, oh yeah, I need my rook to defend that square. That was like his whole point. So I've got to just play king f2 or king f1. I don't know if it matters. King f1 makes more sense because he has a dark square bishop. So king e1, and I mean the game's just over. I mean, I'm gonna have to win it. It'll take some time, but yeah, this was a real pissed because bishop f3, and then he took, and these moves all happened, of course. Now I thought for a while here, because you may notice I'm down a pawn now. So, you know, suddenly the game has turned to where he's the one with winning chances. It's opposite colored bishops, but you know, one thing Ben Feingold has said 10 billion times, and I eventually listened to him, is that opposite colored bishops are usually a win, in his opinion, when there are rooks on the board, because you can attack and the other side can't defend one color complex. So I thought, oh, I need to attack, and I'm down a pawn, so I need to win a pawn back, right? So I played rook e6, and now I'm noticing that, or wait. Yeah, okay, never mind, sorry. Yeah, I played rook e6, and my idea is I want to go here and attack this pawn, which I'm sure he saw. And I know he saw it because he tried to unpin. He knew this move was coming. He was like, I'll unpin. Actually, I don't know. Does that move make any sense? I think it's a bad move, but, you know, who knows? I think this pawn's tough to defend, isn't it? I mean, you can go passive, which if he goes passive, it's probably a draw. So I guess he just unpinned because he doesn't want to have to sit. Oh yeah, I know why. So he unpins, or not really unpinned, but he prevents this from being a pin. His plan was to play g5, and I think he realized here g5 is not good, or at least it doesn't work. So if you play g5, it's still a draw, but the computer says anyway. So we check, and we're forking the king and the pawn, but you can't go here to defend because then this check happens and you lose your rook. Maybe there's other good moves too. So he would have to go here, and then I take the pawn. And I mean, it's easy for me to say it's a draw because the computer says so, but if I'm trying to rationalize that, I would point out that I have his king cut off. And like, for example, maybe my rook can just sit here, and he's never going to get his king into the game. So bishop b4, rook d6 is what was played, so let's look at that. Yeah, so he played rook d6, and I, you know, now I have the opportunity to check and win a pawn, which I did. Thanks for following Creek Got. And I won my pawn back. His bishop's attacked. The rest of the game wasn't too interesting, but there was one interesting moment. We were sort of low-ish on time around here. Here I had to think about, you know, do I want to try to go after stuff? But I sort of realized if I do this, you know, it's difficult to get my rook back if I ever need it back. And also I thought if I went here that, like he could just go here. There was some stuff I calculated. I was trying to figure out if any of this was any good, but Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's all a draw, but it seemed like this was maybe a little risky because his king's moving up the board. So I just retreated my rook and defended my bishop so that this is never that annoying. You know, and obviously my rook can never really be dislodged. He played g5. Yeah, he wants to move the king up, but... Well, wait, but that pawn isn't hanging. So why did he do that? Did I have some threat that I forgot about? Oh, I think he just wants to play g5. I wanted to play h4 to, like, stop g5. So maybe he just thought he needed to play it now before that happens. I don't know, I can't remember. Okay, he played g5. I decided I should probably get my king off the back row. He brought his king up, I brought my king up. And I was thinking, you know, I don't know, maybe somehow I run in here, but I kind of figured it's most likely a draw, but I'm going to keep pressing. And then he played here, and for a brief moment I thought that I had made a mistake. Because now he has a threat. At least I think it's a threat. So, I mean, when he played this, I was just like, whatever, it's some move. It's a legal move. The bishop's great, you know, in the middle of the board, whatever. And then I was like, oh yeah, maybe he'll play g4 check. And then my bishop's not defended. So that probably wouldn't be so good for me. And then I was like, how do I stop g4 check? Because if I play h3, he plays h5, and then it's back on. So, I mean, I was a little worried that I had blown the game here. And I thought, well, I could just move the bishop and give up this pawn and just try to draw down a pawn, and maybe I can do that. But I didn't want to do that unless there was no other option. And I eventually found another option, which I think is quite tricky. And actually, I thought it was so tricky that he might try to win, and in doing, he would lose. Which did not happen, unfortunately. And I actually never asked him, I meant to ask him after the game, did he see this line? But I forgot or something, I don't know. So I played the move rook c6. And the point is this. Let's say he I guess these moves in some order. Because if you want to play the bishop, if you want to take the bishop, that's what you've got to do. You've got to check, and then I take. Now you've got to like trade rooks because you don't want your rook to hang. So rook takes here, here, but then this is I'm promoting. He saw that. I'm sure he saw that. I mean, it's possible that he didn't see it, but like in this position, he would see it. So I knew this was still a draw. Actually, I'm up a pawn now, shockingly. So I knew I wasn't losing this position. I think he saw it. So he did take the rook, and then he played. Yeah, he has to move the bishop back to stop the pawn. I mean, I guess he can move the king back, but who wants to do that? I played h3 to stop this idea. He played h5, which I saw, to threaten this. So I moved the bishop here to attack the pawn. He played h4. Both of our clocks were, I think, under 15, under 10, something like that. So I thought for maybe a minute and a half, and I tried to find some winning plan, like some legal way that I could win. Because, I mean, I have a passed pawn and he doesn't. So, I mean, I guess if anyone's going to win, it's white. But it's opposite colored bishops. I'm never going to control the c7 square. You know, I offered a draw and he accepted immediately. So, I don't think there's really a way to try to fight, but maybe there is. Yeah, my king has to get in there, and he's not going to let that happen. So, I just didn't think it was realistic to play on. So yeah, I mean, I think overall I played okay that game. It's just, it's disappointing because if I hadn't blundered the piece back, then I played pretty great. Like, I was just winning the whole game. It's funny and sad that there was this double blunder that just made the game a draw. So actually the computer says after this sequence, like, obviously white is super winning here, white's up a piece. and then I immediately blunder it back. From here on, it just says basically zeros. There's a few little blips where, like, for some reason here it gives a small edge to black, it looks like, but I don't know. I think it's just a draw the whole time, so. Okay, that was game 2.